Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you very much, Donna, and thank you, Hong Kong FFIA, for arranging this very nice event. And for those of you who haven't finished your lunch, just go ahead and you continue enjoy the lunch while I'm speaking. This is a very informal event. So today I would like to introduce some of the latest developments in the offshore RMB markets. And as you know that in the past 2 years, there's a lot of changes and quite a lot of things has happened in this market. And today, with limited of time, I would like to introduce some of the latest developments in this 6th area, including liquidity pool, the dim sum bond markets and cross-border trade settlements, the CNH versus the CNY rates, the new initiative by the markets and also by the regulators. And also, we want to introduce some of the interest from the foreign banks. That actually they have some interest in the RMB bonds already. Now, first of all, we'd like to take a look at the RMB liquidity pool. If you look at this chart, it's clearly that after the RMB pool, deposit has been peaked in November last year. It has been a little bit of, slow down. And people might ask why and what will be, what will the future look like? I think to answer this question, first of all, we'd like to understand what's the majority of the RMB pool coming from? Is it coming from the individual conversion or is it come from the corporates? And I think most of you know the answer. It's pretty obvious. It's coming from the cross-border trade settlement by the corporations between Hong Kong and the mainland of China. And not just Hong Kong, actually it's overseas locations and the mainland of China. So you can see the cross-border trade settlement scheme was introduced in July 2009, but not until the second half of 2010 did the the cross-border trade settlement volume pick up, and which caused a huge the RMB funds inflow from the mainland of China to Hong Kong and to other overseas locations. So if you look at the latest number, latest number announced by Hong Kong MA, actually by the end of July this year, the RMB deposit in Hong Kong is about 563 billion, or about 9% of Hong Kong's total deposit base. Now, we also noticed there's some what we call the certificates of deposits. This kind of product has been introduced since the second half of last year, and currently the outstanding amount is about 120 billion. So if you add the two parts of the pool up, it's actually the total deposit pool in Hong Kong is roughly about 700 billion. So if you use these two pools adding together, we can see that actually compared with November last year, it's pretty much flat or actually increased just a little bit. Looking forward, I think I will be surprised if there's huge increase in the deposit pool in the second half of this year, but I do expect that there will be some steady but maybe slower pace growth in the next 2 years. Now, in terms of the dim sum bond, we have seen quite a lot of changes. I'm not sure, maybe some of our participants today is in the dim sum bond market. If you are in that market, you might remember that in the first half of last year, there's quite a lot of, for example, like Galaxy Entertainment, this is not like a AAA rating, issuers. They can successfully issue the dim sum bonds in Hong Kong using what we call a synthetic way, which is the RMB denominated but settled in US dollar. At that point of time, a lot of names can easily issue dim sum bonds in Hong Kong. But since the second half of the year, investors becomes more and more risk averse. Partly due to the things happening somewhere in Europe and some other stuff as well. So what we can see here is that we can see the dim sum bond market is experienced quite a lot of changes. First, if you look at the IG names and sovereign names, you can see the yield spread between the onshore and offshore markets. The spread has been narrowed. It used to be 100 basis point to 250 basis point between them. Right now, it's around are actually less than 50 basis points. So this is a new change. But for those, non-rated bonds or some of them, non-IG names, the spread is still quite high. Actually, preventing some of the mainland non-rated corporations. They want to get the fundings in the dim sum bond, but actually they can get a much lower funding in the mainland of China. So that's the dim sum bond markets. And what I would say is that I would expect about 20 to 30% increase in terms of the total volume compared with last year. And we can see also the diversification of the issuers has been continuing. It used to be only the financial institutions. Right now, there are more and more corporates and financial institutions as well. Actually, in the last 2 months, we can see a lot of financial institutions issuing dim sum bonds in Hong Kong. Pretty much the majority of them. July and August. And some of them, they just issue the dim sum bonds and then swap them into US dollar. So I would expect the QE3 will have some impact on that because the QE3 will probably make the US dollar funding cost in Hong Kong a little bit lower. So maybe people might turn to the US dollar dim sum bond. But it also depends on how the situation in the swap market develops. Now, in terms of the volume of the cross-border trade settlement, as you can see from this chart, it is still growing. It is very healthy, and the running rate each month is about 200 billion. And Hong Kong right now handle about 80% of China's cross-border trade settlements. So within either Hong Kong, or if you look at the bigger picture for the mainland of China, you can see the picture is pretty healthy, and we can see that the RMB is becoming more and more accepted by people, by the corporations overseas as a settlement currency. Now, as you know, they have two rates. There's a CNY rate, which is the Chinese yuan onshore rate, and there's a CNH rate, which is the offshore rate. Now, if you look at the chart here, the more stable one, it's a CNY rate, which is pretty much reflected this supply and demand situation in the mainland. And also, if you look at the red lines, which is the CNH rate, there's several things we can note from here. Once in a while, the CNY rate and CNH rate did differ quite a lot, notably in the September of 2010 and September to October of last year. So it looks like September and October looks like a troublesome months, but this year I think it's much better. I don't think there's huge difference in between. What we can learn from this development is that, for one thing, we have more and more channels for the capital account investor, either through the FDI, either through the RQFE program, or either through the mainland correspondent deposit channels, so that the two markets getting closer and closer. This will mean that less opportunities for the trade finance, especially for those kinds who want to engage some sort of arbitrage opportunities between these two rates. And we can see right now it's normally lower than 100 pips. So I think that looking forward, I don't expect these two rates will be diverse like 1,000 pips that we had before, like for example in October last year. Now there's quite a few new initiatives. One of them, notably, the RQFE scheme. Actually, the RQFE scheme in the first batch of the RQFE funds, which is introduced by, I think it's 21 fund houses and security firms of the mainland, from the mainland. They wasn't so, well, received by the market. Partly because, at that point of time, most of the RQFE fund needs to be invested in the mainland's bond markets. Only up to 20% can be invested in the Asia market. But the new batch, which is coming just recently by the CSOP, this is the China Southern Fund's subsidiary, and also E-Fund. Each one of them has introduced about 5 billion and was, pretty much fully subscribed in just a year or two. Now, what's the difference in here? I think there's two things that we can see from this situation. One is that ETF products has been well recognized by the Hong Kong investors, and people were very familiar with this with this kind of product. And the second thing is probably more importantly, is that in the second batch of the RQFE quota, they can invest in the Asia markets. So basically, for example, they can link to the China's A50 Asia Market Index. Looks like the investors in Hong Kong, they like equity products than the fixed income products. Now, also in this week, just in Monday, Hong Kong Stock Exchange introduced the deliverable RMB futures, and this has have arise some of the interest from the market participants or investors. Now, how do we look at this? And I think economically, the RMB future is pretty much the same as the deliverable forwards, which has been trading for a year and a half now, I think. But the difference between the DF and the futures is that the futures is more standardized. It probably have more liquidity, and it has a central counterparty, which is Hong Kong Stock Exchange. In the first day of the transaction, when you look at the statistic from the newspaper, it says the transaction volume is about $40 million US, which is not much. But I would say do not judge it. I mean, it's too early to judge the popularity of these products. I remember when we first introduced the cross-border trade settlements, in the first six months, there's almost no transaction. So at that point of time, we were thinking, this kind of scheme will ever work? So come back to this, futures. I think it's too early to judge. People might need time to, open their accounts, get all these, legal documents and logistics stuff set up. So maybe we can come back to re-evaluate this products maybe in 6 months' time. Things might be quite a lot different from now. I think some of you may already notice that in August this year, the offshore RMB banking for non-resident individuals in Hong Kong were introduced, and this is something that we have been long waited for quite some time, because before that, if you don't have a Hong Kong identification card, you cannot open an RMB account in Hong Kong. I mean, for the individuals. But right now, if you open an account, you can pretty much you can, even if you don't have a Hong Kong identification card, you can open an RMB account. You can do the deposits. You can do remittance, all kind of different. You can have the credit card. So pretty much the basic banking products, and also some of the structured products, or you can get it from the banks in Hong Kong now. Now, what would be the major sources of this? I guess you might be asked. I think I will provide two answers for you, two choices for you. One is from the mainland, and the other side is from the overseas. So, if anyone wants to guess who will be the major source? Anyone? Well, actually, at least from the first few weeks, what we can see is that almost 80% of them is coming from the mainland. So we can see there's still probably just basically the mainland has a huge population, and they travel to Hong Kong quite a lot. But I think looking forward, I think there will be more and more people from overseas open an account in Hong Kong, especially in Southeast Asia. I once meet during my trip, to some other places. I meet with some of the Southeast Asia Chinese. They said they want to open an account in Hong Kong, and at one time I told him that I'm sorry, the policy is not allowed yet. And then he kind of going back to me and saying, hey, we have the whole village trying to open an account. So if the policy is open, just give me a call right away. So it is the time for them to open an account in Hong Kong. I think they are, compared with some other locations, Hong Kong still have more products to offer. So I think that's one of the major reasons. Now, we have finished talking about the non-individual, but how about the foreign central banks? Do they have a lot of interest? And this chart is by far not a complete picture of what we have heard or what we have known. But just like in each continent, we pick up some of the countries. So if your country is not showing up in there, well, I know we have a very diverse pool here today. So don't feel upset that we know quite a lot of countries have interest in RMB right now. Once in a while, we actually receive some emails or phone calls from foreign central banks and say they're interested in buying some of the RMB, either dim sum bonds or some of them in the mainland interbank bond markets. There are quite a lot of foreign banks. They already have a quota to invest in the mainland's interbank bond markets. So if you look at the chart here, you can see like big countries like Japan, and you can see some of the countries even targeted to convert 10% of their reserve to RMB. For example, Nigeria. So we can see more and more countries looking at this right now, and dim sum bond, as the dim sum bonds yields becoming higher and higher, it's now becoming more and more feasible option compared with the compared with the onshore market. In order to support the development of the offshore RMB business, we can see that PBOC has been trying to get more and more currency swap with foreign central banks or monetary authorities. I have just have some conversations with the participants today, and I told them it's my impression that countries in Asia, especially in Southeast Asia, they have more interest in the RMB business, and they have traditionally had more experience with using the RMB. This can be seen in this chart. You can see most of the red dots, which represent the countries that already have the swap agreements with PBOC. Most of them by now is still in the Asia Pacific area. Now we can see that probably because during the Asian financial crisis, RMB stands strong without depreciation. So from the time in 1997 or 1998, there's already quite some recognitions for RMB in Southeast Asia. And also at that point of time, we already remember that some of the border trade, for example, between China and Vietnam, they're already conducted in RMB. So even before there's a cross-border trade settlement scheme, some of the peoples in South Asian countries, they already know RMB, and they know that this is kind of a currency they think they can trust in the crisis times. So looking forward, I think the change will be will be going on, and there will be on the other side. I think there will be more and more. There will be more and more countries in the European, in the Americas, in Africa will also have this kind of arrangement with PBOC. This is a chart that shows that the number of financial institutions that's already conducting the RMB business. So not surprisingly, Hong Kong comes to the first, with Singapore and the United Kingdom comes right next to it. And I think in the near future, Taiwan will pick up in this table as well. Overall, by the end of last year, according to the statistics by SWIFT, more than 1,000 financial institutions in over 95 countries already doing RMB business. So looking forward, I think China's economic growth is still the most important impetus for the internationalization of RMB. And if you're looking at all the three different part of it, first part is cross-border trade settlement, the second part is from the investment, and the third part is as a reserve currency. I think in the first part of it is already developing quite well. And right now, around 10% of China's international trade has been settled in RMB. Looking forward, I will only expect this percentage to go up. In terms of the investments, China introduced the RMB FDI and ODI last year, and it's at the beginning phase of the development. For example, for the ODI in RMB, last year for the whole year it's only like 20 billion, and for FDI it's around 100 billion. So this is at the beginning stage, but I think in the future it will become bigger and bigger. Now, in terms of the reserve currency, as we just mentioned, I think with all the turmoils, around the world, and then, RMB has been staying quite stable or quite strong for quite a long time. I will see that more and more foreign central banks are trying to diversify their reserves into RMB, and this will be a gradual process, I think. Now, I believe Hong Kong will continue to play a very important role in facilitating the development of the offshore RMB business. And other locations can leverage the RMB business platform of Hong Kong to develop the offshore RMB business, which is exactly what London is doing right now. London is taking a market-driven approach to the development of the RMB business in the UK. And what they're trying to do is that they will try their best to leverage the platform of Hong Kong. By saying platform, we mean the financial infrastructure, for example, the RMB RTGS system, or also some of the platform that they can use, for example, the products in here, the liquidity, Hong Kong banks in Hong Kong can provide to a certain extent the liquidity for other locations. So altogether, we consider this kind of platform. And Hong Kong has been in talks with London on this, and London has been adopting this kind of approach to develop the RMB business. And another trend I can see is that the onshore market and the offshore market are more and more closely linked to each other. This can be seen, as I just mentioned, that the interest rate in RMB, it used to be very, very different from what we have in the onshore market and compared with the offshore market. It used to be the interest rate. It used to be much lower in Hong Kong or other overseas locations. But right now in Hong Kong, the RMB's, the interest rates have been getting up for quite a while now, and you can see banks are trying to attract the RMB deposits using over 3% interest rate. And looking forward, I will see that this trend will, to a certain extent, the interest rate will be, there's a spread between the onshore and offshore RMB interest rate will becoming narrower and narrower. And also the exchange rate, basically CNH and CNY rate, since the arbitrage opportunities is pretty much the banks are knowing all this kind of stuff in there. And also the capital account is becoming more and more open to the outside world. The exchange rate will, to a certain extent, they will be more and more converged to each other. So this is something that I prepared for a short presentation. And if you have any questions, I will be glad to discuss with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the very interesting presentation. I would like to open the floor to questions. Anyone? Any question? Please.
In terms of milestones.
The micro, please. Right.
In terms of milestones for further liberalization of the RMB, what do you see in the next coming years?
This is a very good question. I think that we just actually I have just discussed with some other participants today regarding that. As the Chinese doing some sort of 12 5-year plan, and they just announced their 12 5-year plan regarding the financial sector. And I think there's 3 major parts that they're trying to do. The first thing is that in the next 3 to 5 years, according to the documents, they're trying to gradually liberalize the capital account. So that's the first thing. The second thing, what they will do is that the interest rate reform. They're actually conveying a very positive message. They want to do something in there. And also, in terms of the exchange rate regime, they're trying to move to a more and more flexible, exchange rate regime, and more market-driven exchange rate regime for the CNY rate. So these 3 parts: one is the capital account, second one interest rate reform, and the third one is the currency exchange rate system.
Other questions? Julia?
In China's effort in building renminbi to be one of the major reserve currencies, what do you see would be, like you mentioned, how the task it will have to go in terms of creating more comfort by the major countries or other asset managers in terms of the risk volatility of renminbi going forward? Even say U.S. dollars in this quest to become a default reserve currency was once packed to gold in the early 70s. Do you see China be doing something similar as well?
I'm not sure whether they will have this kind of plan, but in terms of the currency exchange rate, if you look at the China versus US dollar, it has depreciated somewhat, year to date. But if you look at them, looking at it as like a basket of currencies, it's actually RMB has been appreciated a little bit year to date. So I think what will promote the Chinese international recognition, one of the most important parts that they can stay, the value of the currency can stay quite stable over the years. They can, even with the impact from some international or financial market challenges, if it can stay very stable, that's one of the most important thing. And another thing is that it remains the key part to see where the Chinese economy is going, and because in the past 6 months, quite a lot of international investors have some negative view over the Chinese economy, and overall, actually, I think China can still maintain quite a I would say impressive growth in the coming few years. They still have quite a lot of measures to do. They still have a lot of monetary policies and anything like that, or even fiscal policies. I think at a certain point of time they can, if they need it, they have this kind of weapon to going out to promote the economy. So looking forward, I would think this is when we look back maybe 20 years from now, it's only like a few years, and I think PBOC steps already much bigger, much faster than we have originally imagined. So we have talked to some of the PBOC officials, and they're quite open minded and they're very intelligent people. So looking forward, I think that the RMB will just go more and more accepted by the other countries, but it will take time, I would think.
Other questions? Anybody? Gentlemen.
One of the restrictions we've seen, which has inhibited the development of the offshore market, has been the restrictions on the amount of guarantees that can be given by onshore banks to support offshore financing.
Right.
And this is the Sept quota, for example. And recently we've seen a lot of developments in the market, just sort of speaking to lawyers and also looking at circulars that have been sent to banks, suggesting that renminbi guarantees are actually being liberalised so that onshore banks can now give renminbi guarantees to support offshore financing. What's your take on that?
I think what you mentioned is that, if I understand it correctly, is that some of the, for example, the parent bank gives the guarantees for their subsidiaries in Hong Kong to get the loans from the banks. Am I understanding correctly?
Yeah, this is also corporates who have a cash-rich onshore in China, and they collateralise the onshore bank, which is then able to give a guarantee.
Right.
Yeah.
I think this has been doing for a while now, and I think that will be definitely a positive thing for the subsidiaries or subsidiaries companies for them who operate in Hong Kong, especially talking the RMB market now compared with a year ago is a completely different story, because a year ago we had a lot of deposit accumulation, but we don't have too much to asset build up. But this year is exactly the opposite. We have a lot of asset build up, but we don't have a lot of deposit accumulation, which at the as you can see from the data, up to now, in terms of the RMB loans, the market as a whole is only 60 billion. Not including the trade finance, but just the loans. If you look at the growth rate, you would say this is fantastic, it's huge. but compared with what, because of the base is very small, so it's still less than what people think. But come back to a question, I think that kind of mainland guarantee is definitely a good practice for the subsidiaries to get the loans in Hong Kong. And also, we will see that how the deposit pool will build up, because we used to have quite a lot lower funding rates in Hong Kong in terms of the RMB loans. But right now, it's becoming more and more close to what we have in the mainland. So it really depends. But I think banks can try to find some opportunities to really capture. Sometimes opportunities will happen because the financial markets change very fast. Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions? Please.
I think your bank is a single dedicated clearer of the RMB for years. And what's your views as a business? Is it a profit center or just a cost center for the operation?
We have two roles. We actually separate the two roles, right? So we have the role as a clearing bank, which is very much like what we say the services agency for the banks in Hong Kong. Basically, we don't earn monies from that, because what we do is actually we provide a channel to for the participating banks to clear the RMB cross-border trade settlements, not just across the mainland and the other part of the world, but also between two overseas locations, for example, between Singapore and Hong Kong, and Singapore and London, things like that. So for that part of the business, we need to involve a lot in the IT system, in the people. We have a RMB clearing center, and pretty much it's just a service agent. We don't make money from it. But in terms of the another role, which is we are also a participating bank. So for another role, we pretty much we can do some dim sum bond underwriting. We do the trading. We do the loans, and we do all kinds of investments as well. So on the other part of it, yes, we just operating like any other banks in Hong Kong. Yeah.
Other questions? Maybe I have one for you. Do you think do you expect other products coming out for renminbi short business in the next few months or in the future?
We see new products once in a while, so I think that something I will in the next few months might not be new, but some of them we can expect is that I think that for our RQF quota will be a good thing for them to structure more ETFs in Hong Kong. Somewhere in the future, because we have already dual currency listing system that has been built up by Hong Kong Stock Exchange. So what I would think is that in the future there will be more equity listings as well. We have the Hui Xian last year in April. It's not traditionally kind of stock because it's a rate in there, and we don't have a non-rate RMB equity listings in Hong Kong yet. So I think that will be something that Hong Kong Stock Exchange will be working on. And also besides the RMB futures, I think Hong Kong Stock Exchange will also, trying to introduce more exchange-traded derivatives, what we call ETDs, possibly including options and that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm expecting to come out. Yeah.
If no more questions, I'd like to thank once again Mr. Ye, and given I have a small token of appreciation for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thanks.
I think we have for my picture.
Thank you very much, Virginia.
Thank you very much again, and thanks to all our guests. Again, I would like to ask the members to stay for a few minutes. We go on with the AGM. Thanks again and have a good day.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you very much. If you want to keep your things here.